On today's episode of Fin Too Deep is a report that the Miami Dolphins scouts love Shedeur Sanders. Accurate? Me and Neal will give you the latest on what we're hearing about that whole situation. Is Tua Tagovailoa's return going to be enough to fix this season? With all these teams struggling in the AFC, it just might be, but we'll talk about it. Plus, the Dolphins coaching staff comes out today before practice and continues to defend this offensive line, specifically the interior. We'll talk about all that. Plus, the injuries for the Colts keep piling up, and things are looking in Miami's favor for their matchup this Sunday in Week 7. We'll talk about all that and so much more. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into this.
Touchdown! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, that open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again. Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming and get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one as I'm joined by Neal Driscoll for Fin Too Deep. Today, we'll dive right in. Hope all of you are having a fantastic week thus far. Neal, the Dolphins are coming off their bye week. The AFC picture has shifted a little bit with the addition of Davante Adams and Amari Cooper. How are you feeling heading into Week 7 with where the Dolphins are at and where the AFC East specifically is at right now?
Yeah, first, happy belated Canadian Thanksgiving Day. I saw that you had the spread.
Thanks,
it looked
bro.
good, man. It's my favorite holiday here in the States, man. Doing nothing, watching football, drinking a little bit and doing all that good stuff. But no, man, look, the AFC East, it's funny, the big headline this week were the two teams making moves for wide receivers, and I see why they're doing that, right? Like if I'm the Buffalo Bills, that receiving core hasn't lived up to the hype that a lot of fans were kind of putting on them. Curtis Samuel seems lost. Keon Coleman's making some plays, but he's a rookie that needs time. And Khalil Shakir has been injured. So getting a reliable target for Josh Allen makes sense. I like Amari Cooper on the Bills more than I like the Jets going after Davante Adams, if I'm being honest. But, the Jets, I think desperate teams have to make desperate moves at desperate times. And, them at 2-4 with all the hoopla around Aaron Rodgers firing their coach, they're just throwing Hail Marys up at this point, I think. And, it's a cool story that Adams and Rodgers have that familiarity. But if you watch them, their offensive line is absolutely horrendous. Tyron Smith lost that fountain of youth. He's the worst left tackle in football right now. Morgan Moses comes back. He gets dominated. They're very undisciplined. Every offensive lineman on their team, except John Simpson, so 4 to the 5, had a 10-yard holding penalty in the last game. And their defensive line sucks. And their secondary, because I think, Sauce and DJ Reed, a lot of people didn't really challenge them. Well, they're being challenged. They're not making as many plays. I think the Jets defense is very overrated. And it's ironic that here we are. We haven't had Tua for 2.5 games. yet we're second in the AFC East at this point of the season, with some very winnable games on the horizon. So for the Miami Dolphins, which was a nightmare when Tua Tagovailoa goes down, to be honest, I dare say the word playoffs could still be on the agenda if this team finds its footing fast and number one gets right behind center.
Yeah, I like the good thing we were talking about before we went live is, it seems like the Bills are running away a little bit. They're starting to separate themselves, right? They technically got a 3-game lead on us because they're ahead of us by 2 games, plus they beat us, right? The crazy thing that is, though, Neal, is that, when if Tua comes back for the Arizona game, which is what it's trending for, I mean, he's got to be back on his P's and Q's right away. Like, there's like no time to be, rusty. Arizona's one of those teams where, they're up and down this year, but they're putting up points if they want to. You got the Bills the second week he comes back. And then, you start getting into the Rams, you start getting into the Raiders game, and you start getting into, the back half of the schedule that we all agreed was going to be pretty tough. Now, obviously, we were talking about this too before we went live here. The Browns aren't as good as we all expected them to be. You know what I mean? I still think we have a chance, even with Devontae Adams, to sweep the Jets. So... And I mean, when Tua missed all that time in 2022, he's pretty effective when he came back. How are you expecting Tua's rust level when he comes back? What are you expecting from him in terms of that situation? Because I think a lot of people are just expecting it's going to be plug and play and he'll be right back to normal, where it might be something that takes 1 or 2 weeks to start clicking back to where we need it to be, right?
Yeah, look, I don't think Tua was even playing necessarily to his potential before he got concussed in that game. The Buffalo game was rough. The Jacksonville game was good. To me, though, what I can stomach is, and we've seen this. I mean, what we've seen at the quarterback position, whether it's Skylar Thompson, Boyle, Tyler Huntley, we can all agree that at his worst, Tua Tagovailoa is such a better option than anyone here. So, like for me, this is going to be an MVP season for Tua Tagovailoa. Well, that narrative has kind of sailed away. And the AFC East title, like, honestly, it doesn't even mean that much to me. What I want to see this team do is what we haven't seen them do under Mike McDaniel, which is play their best football as the season progresses. Become a team that's firing on all cylinders and is dangerous when those postseason schedules come. If we walk in as a wild card and, we have to go win a road playoff game, that will teach me a lot about this football team, right? That we're not these front-running bandwagon team that has to have everything fall our way in order to win. So, yeah, I think there's going to be some level of rust maybe with Tua after missing some time. But, it's only been 3 football games, right? And I think that he's going to come out pretty eager. Like, you and I have talked about this. Like, the reason Tua's on the IR is because I think more so of the NFL and the Miami Dolphins try to protect their franchise from future penalty more than it was Tua's not ready to play. Like, there's such a spotlight put on Tua and his concussions, and the Dolphins want to be careful, and they care about the player, right? But I would say if this was Tua's first concussion and nothing else had happened previously, he'd already be playing football. And so
I agree with that.
I think Arizona is a good team to come back and shake that rust against because, I think where Arizona could give us fits is actually with their offense more than their defense. And because if he doesn't play against Arizona, one thing I will say is, do you want to feed him straight to the wolves against the Buffalo Bills? And it's not taken, for me, the Bills are a team that's had our number. Like, I think they're a top 3 team in the AFC right now as it currently stands. Do you want that to be his first test back? If you win this game, maybe that takes a little bit of pressure off of him coming back. But the reality of it is Tua just signed the biggest contract in Dolphins history. He wants to play. They want him out there. I think he's going to be out there sooner than later. But I personally would not want his first game back to be against Buffalo.
Okay, and this is I was waiting to see if you'd mention it. You didn't. The other factor that needs to be taken into account here with the Buffalo Bills, I know you said they have our number. Sure, they 110% do. But think about this. Do they have Tua's number with injuries? Remember he had that big rib injury. Remember he had that big rib injury against them, right? Where they broke the rib. He got his bell rung before the Cincinnati Bengals game against them, so a concussion, and then he's had like 3 kind of major injuries. His 3 biggest injuries at this level in the NFL he's had against the Buffalo Bills. 2 concussions and a serious rib injury all cost him time.
Right. Yeah, and look, and the other side of me says, hey, like, let him go out there, baptism by fire, like go conquer the
You don't
beast.
have a choice, right? Like you don't.
Because no matter what, it doesn't matter. Like if Tyler Huntley, Skylar Thompson, or Tim Boyle aren't leading this Dolphins team into Buffalo to beat the Bills, it's just not going to happen. He's
our only chance.
Yeah, if Tua came in and played efficient football, and that's all we really need is complementary run and pass with the defense continuing to play at this level, and you could beat them. Like I know they've had our number, but like I don't think they're like this team that's light years better than us. I think they're a team that's just been better coached in the situations, and they've had Josh Allen be the best player on the field. He wasn't the last time we paid him, but usually he's looking like an MVP against us. But that's a couple weeks away. I do think, though, when you look at the Dolphins' schedule, which once looked very gloomy, the Jets are still the Jets, and we have them twice. Mm-hmm. We have the Raiders, which I think is a very winnable game, especially without Christian Wilkins and now no Devontae and, Aiden O'Connell's quarterback in there. You have the Cleveland Browns. I know the Packers, Jordan Love's played some good football, but I don't think the Packers have showed to be that, Super Bowl dark horse that a lot of people were projecting before the season. The Texans are a tough out, but Nico Collins is down right now, right? Like, so a lot of teams are battling injuries, and and I know this, they damn sure have a really good opportunity this week, and if they can win against the Colts in Arizona, and they come out of all this mess 4-3, man, that is impressive. Considering 2 weeks ago, I was literally Googling who the Dolphins might take with the first overall pick, right? So like, when you put that in perspective, like, this is a very good opportunity for Mike McDaniel to kind of grow his wings as a coach here and lead his team through what has been a disastrous start. But we started hot last year. Like, we beat Denver 7-20. We were all talking Super Bowl. That was the pinnacle of last year. Let's right the ship and make our best statements be in December. That's what I want to see.
And it's like now, it looks like we're going to get healthy heading into the back half instead of how we were getting, like, Chubb will be coming back, et cetera, all these other players we got coming back. Cam Smith's going to be coming back. Craycraft's going to be coming back, et cetera, right? So hopefully we can reverse the fortune and we can end this off on a really hot streak, and we can also get as healthy as possible given the guys we have on the roster right now. Speaking of the whole edge situation, where are you because I know a lot of people are talking about, like, I don't even think they're available, but the whole conversation about Max Crosby and Myles Garrett or Hassan Reddick, I think obviously Crosby and of course Myles Garrett are the 2 more talented guys than Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick's still good, but it would cost you more to trade in division. Right. Where are your thoughts on trying to add an edge rusher? Because here's my thing, bro. If you don't like how Greer's constructed this roster, why would you want him to go out and continue to construct this roster and use future assets, number one? And number two, as good as Crosby or Myles Garrett are, do we really think that's the difference between, a playoff win and a Super Bowl win? Or, you know what I mean? Like, do they really tip the scales towards Super Bowl contender that much?
You know what? They're both. Look, Myles Garrett, if I had to put money, he'd be probably my number 1 or 2 overall defensive player in football. And I
Yeah.
think Max Crosby is absolutely the guy, right? Like, he is
Yeah.
awesome. I think both those players are going to probably come with a first-round price tag, or
Yeah.
at worst, an early second. And with us not knowing the Dolphins' plan at quarterback heading into offseason, like, we're going to talk about it more, but there is a lot of chatter that the Dolphins are in the quarterback draft market, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think you need to protect yourself and keep that pick, but I do think there are veterans that you can go out there and get. Azeez Ojulari from the Giants is a guy that makes a lot of sense. A
I
guy in
still think he might cost you like a day 2 pick because of how young he is and what they spent on him. I mean, he had 8.5 sacks as a rookie. I mean, I was high on Azeez Ojulari, right? Him and Phillips were my top 2 edge rushers in that class. I still think Ojulari will cost you a 3rd or a 4th. I just don't think it'll be as expensive as the first round pick you're talking about, right?
Yeah, it'll probably be like a day. I think a 3rd-round pick probably is what Azeez Ojulari's price is. A guy that I'm intrigued by who's not playing a lot in Cleveland right now is Darius Smith, where he left Baltimore. He has some ties to Baltimore. Anthony Weaver and him know each other. Like, he's not starting from what I hear in Cleveland. He's a talented veteran that could come in here. I don't know what his contract is, but I don't think it's anything astronomical that we couldn't stomach. But, because it's unfortunate what happened to Jalen Phillips, and kudos to him for having what deems to be a successful surgery. With Chubb down, it's going to be the Chop Robinson and Emmanuel Agba show for now. And luckily for the Dolphins, Emmanuel Agba, dare I say, has been the MVP of the defense for the first quarter of the season. And if it's not him, it's Calais Campbell or Zach Sealer, who they share, on the defensive front with. So, but I do think they need to scour that veteran pass rush market. They need another guy. I think they need a guy even if Chubb comes back, because Mo Kamara has been inactive. And look, I'll fall on the sword. I was wrong. I thought Shaq Barrett was a suitable replacement for Andrew Van Ginkel, and that's laughable now because Shaq retired and Andrew Van Ginkel's playing like an all-pro. So, joke's on me. But, I think they need to go out there and find a veteran pass rusher. I look at teams, I look at teams like Jacksonville. I look at teams like Cleveland Browns, who we've mentioned, the Giants, teams that, just appear to be sellers. Tonight's game, like, if the Saints lose again, right? And that's a horrible game tonight, Broncos Saints. Oh, God. But could Carl Granderson, be available, who's a good, pass rusher for New Orleans? Wait.
Yeah.
Yes, Carl.
Yeah.
Curtis is the baseball player. I was making sure I got it right.
Yeah.
It's that Tony Sperano versus Sperano thing.
Let me ask you this. Are you shocked that there isn't a much bigger deal being made about Olave, who suffered his 3rd concussion in 3 years and 4th concussion since 2020 when he was at Ohio State?
You know what? Nothing shocks me. I think the NFL hates the Dolphins, man. Like, they always put the Dolphins when things are going bad in the forefront of their news, and then when things are going good, they're like, the afterthought. But no, I think that's definitely worrisome on Chris Olave's part. Great football player, but man, these concussions and the amount of injuries we're seeing overall, it's scary at this level, man. But I do think that, like, the Tua, there's not a player whose concussion would mean more to the NFL going forward than Tua Tagovailoa. No one else.
Yeah.
Pat Mahomes, no one, because of the story around Tua and because of how polarizing he is as a player and as a person, and because the gravity of the 2 concussions that have been on national television. Tua is the poster child now for what the NFL is, looking out there to make an example of. And they've already, shown that they're capable of punishing the Dolphins, and it wouldn't surprise me. And I think that's why the Dolphins are playing it as safe as possible with Tua. But I will say one reason that I think a lot of people, like, when people are like criticizing Mike McDaniel at the podium, like, Mike McDaniel is not going to come back when we're getting ready for a game against the Indianapolis Colts and start declaring Tua coming back against Arizona. You know what I mean? That's just not how coaches work, man. Like, they're on to, they're going to play it close to the vest. They want to show that they're taking every precaution possibility. If they just started saying, oh yeah, Tua's coming back in 2 weeks at this point, it'd be kind of reckless on their part. So, like, I know there's been a lot of analyzation of how Mike McDaniel's been, like, verbally answering questions about Tua, but he's just given coaches speak. And, NFL coaches at a podium are the best liars in the world. Like, we've seen it for years, like, they all get up there and They check the box. They're careful with their words. They don't want to divulge too much information. But yeah, man, it's the concussion thing's tough, and I'm not going to sit there every time Tua gets hit going forward, man. I'm going to be
rough.
I'm going to be holding my breath.
I know.
I'm going to be, and it sucks, but I'm going to be holding my breath because I do
Yeah.
think that he's one concussion away from
It's over.
his career being over. Yep,
Yeah,
I do.
Or at least it's, we are still unsure right now. I mean, Omar Kelly doesn't think he'll be cut, but if he has another concussion this season, then I don't foresee the Miami Dolphins, investing much more on this. You know what I mean? So
you're 100% right. Why? How could you go into another season with that at like that situation? How could you? Like, you owe yourself, your fans better, and it's nothing against Tua Tagovailoa. Like, there's stuff that just happens, man. Look, Bo Jackson might have been the greatest running back in the history of football, but injury kept him out of it, right? Like that. Yeah. It's the unfortunate part of the game, and they do know what they sign up for. But we're going to talk about this at nauseum as after this season, so I don't want to dive into it. But it's the biggest conversation to me in recent Miami Dolphins history is what is the plan in the offseason. The results of the season definitely are going to play into it. But if this team falls short of any of their goals with this added concussion history increasing, like, it's going to be some tough conversations in that building, man. And I'll tell you this, I have no idea how it all shakes out.
And speaking of Mo Kamara, at his locker today, I don't know if you saw it, but he said, and I quote, "I know I'm not ready yet. I have to continue to get better." That's what Coach Crow said, Ryan Crow, our outside linebackers coach. So, I mean, it doesn't even look like we're seeing Mo Kamara anytime soon.
Yeah, it's going to be some Tyus Bowser, I think. I think it's going to be Tyus, Chop, and Agba getting a majority of the snaps.
And then Quentin Bell getting a couple snaps here and there, right?
Yeah.
Man, talk about a guy who didn't live up to the preseason height. Which one you got on your bingo? Which one you got on your bingo card as the bigger guy, Tanner Connor or Quentin Bell as the guys that were hyped in the preseason that haven't lived up to anything?
Well, I saw some people saying Quentin Bell was the best player at practice, and for that, and I'm not just saying they're wrong. He was playing obviously lights out to that extent. But for none of that to translate is definitely
at all.
Yeah, at all. I mean, like he's AWOL. But yeah, man, some of these young rookies, it's going to be, I think, for like players like even Malik Washington. I think a lot of these guys are on that red shirt year that you see so often.
I don't think Malik would have been used properly unless you had Tua in here fully healthy. I think Tua is the only guy that would have targeted him, to be honest with you.
You know what, though? I got to be honest, Reason. One of the things I hate about the Miami Dolphins philosophy is how patient they are with their rookie class, how they're so willing to just let them waste a year. Like, look at Kansas City. I mean, they threw out that kid from BYU, Kingsley Suamatia, and he was their starting left tackle, and it didn't work out, but they gave him the opportunity, right? Look at the Ravens throw rookies out there all day long. The 49ers have rookies like, Dominic Puny starting at right guard and looks like a potential Pro Bowler. Like, you gotta let these young guys play.
I think Cam Smith would be playing if he was healthy. That kid, talk about a kid who's got a bad break. Fangio despises you, so relegates you to the bench. Then you actually look like you're making plays in the preseason and at training camp, and the coaching staff's talking you up, and then you get hurt.
Yeah, I want to see Cam bad, man. He's one of the guys I want to see out there bad. I want to see him.
I think you would. If he was healthy, I think we would have seen a heavy dose of him so far.
Yeah. What's the prognosis on him? Is he going to be back in?
He has to be activated by next week.
Right. That's what I thought. Yep.
Yeah.
And that will happen.
His 21-day window was open like 2.5 weeks ago. So he's got to be. He's got it. Yeah. It'll happen.
That's got to happen. They cannot waste a full half season of Cam Smith. They need that guy to develop. Well, and honestly, like, he can play, man. He needs, even if he gets beat a little bit, he needs to go through those growing pains because we need him to learn now. Like, we need him to. He has to be part of the solution moving forward, no matter what happens with this regime after the season. Like, Cam Smith, Jalen Ramsey, and Kendall Fuller going into next season as your three corners is paramount. Like, to have all three of them playing good football, I think, and if Cam can play, more versatility out of Jalen Ramsey, which I think at this point of his career is what you need to see out of him.
Yeah. Before we get into like the main topics here, there's one thing you talked about like McDaniel's growth, and I wanted to talk about this before we moved on. There's a couple things where I think I want to be watching today. This weekend. Is he going to continue to run the ball? And is he going to continue to get Jonnu Smith integrated and utilized by this offense? Because the reason why I asked that is because look at how effective we were with Jonnu out there. Look at how effective we were with running the football. You know, you talked about growth. I think this will be a big step in us and all of us fans who wanted to see some growth, development, and the ability to adjust for McDaniel. If he continues to adjust to the strengths he saw in the New England game while Tua's out, you know, this is the first step, seeing how if he continues those trends coming out of the bye week, then the next step and the final step would be you need to continue those trends when Tua comes back, because Frank Smith today said at the podium that they used one of the things they used the bye week for was trying to figure out how to get playmakers like Jonnu Smith even more involved in this offense moving forward. So yeah, I think this stretch is where we are going to see if the growth we saw in that New England game from McDaniel and the ability to adjust we saw from McDaniel, and really the play calling was better too, if that was for real or not, or if that was just smoke and mirrors for one game. Because, you know, I had a Patreon report and a members only report. One of the things I heard heading into that Patriots game, bro, I heard McDaniel was scrambling for answers to the point where he was contacting former colleagues from the Shanahan tree. One of those colleagues specifically, I can verify that he contacted, trying to find out answers, was LaFleur, because LaFleur went through the same thing this year with Love and Malik Willis having to win with a backup. And I heard privately, and this is like, it don't get more concrete than where this comes from, okay? We can talk backstage about where it came from after the show, but it don't get more concrete than where this came from. And basically, I was told that he was in a way scrambling for answers, and he was going through his Shanahan tree Rolodex, contacting guys, trying to see like what do you recommend I do?
Well, and not to pile on Mike, but it does seem that when Tua went down, he's in over his head. Like he has seen, this has been his worst season as the head coach of the Dolphins.
But I actually take that as a positive, Neil, because that you're putting your ego aside and you're saying, okay, you know what? I don't got the answers. Some of these other guys who are having more success right now that I know really well and who I've come up with over the last 15, 20 years, they've got some answers that could probably help me. Listen, I don't even think it makes them look weak. I think that makes them look smart.
Yeah, you know, and if he calling me, my advice to him would be, hey, Mike, you know what? You take it week by week. You don't try to take your scheme and force it down everybody else's throat every week. You have to adjust to your like this week against the Colts, 65 to 70% of our offensive plays should go through the trio of Jalen Wright, Raheem Mostert, or Devon Achane.
Yeah.
That you're going against the 32nd ranked rush defense in the league. Run the football, right? Like you don't have to have a ton of motion and throw to Tyreek in the flats and run 37 screens this week. Like run the ball. You can beat this team. The best player on their defense, DeForest Buckner, is not going to be playing. Like you can gash this team and beat them soundly if the running game brings its lunch pail. And and then the week after that, when you play Arizona, you might want to spread it out a little bit more, especially if Tua's back. And then you might want to say, you know what? Let's get Tyreek hot. Let's get Waddle hot. Let's get Odell Beckham acclimated. Play it week to week. You don't have to force your own game plan. You can swallow your ego. And I agree with you. It's a positive because this is Mike McDaniel swallowing a little bit of that arrogance that we've seen from him and hitting, a rookie head coach wall, trying to find answers. The good news for him is that he has an unbelievable peer support staff. He is in a clique that is special. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the guys that are in that Rolodex all know what the hell, but they've all also run into the same wall. And that is McVay, that is LaFleur, that is Kyle Shanahan. As good as Kyle Shanahan is, he's in a wall. he does not know how to beat Patrick Mahomes. Like, that is a wall that he is in. And, like, that's where I do think that that's refreshing to hear from them. And, you know, good, because you know what? Maybe they learned running the football works, because, man, I went back and watched that game for the third time after, like, again this week, because I'll be honest, I missed the Dolphins a little bit, man. Like, I went back and I watched it. Dude, Jalen Wright, he should be the starting running back over Devon Achane right now. Right now. He should be right now.
And speaking of Devon Achane, he's cleared concussion protocol. He should be back this weekend.
Right, and that's where I love, because if you want to throw screens, get that dude the ball in space. Get him the ball against the perimeter against the Colts, who, you know, I mean, dude, that team is hurting on defense. Like, you have such a yin and a yang between Jalen Wright, Raheem Mostert, and Devon Achane. You have three guys that can do totally different things at a high level.
And you've invested high cap. If you're going to force Liam Eichenberg down our throat and Austin Jackson, these guys, because of what you invested in them, you invested a third in Achane, and you traded a third to move up to get right. Like, you've invested in these guys. Use them.
All right, 100%. We should be running, controlling the clock. You got hopefully one more week of a backup quarterback. And again, man, winning this game and getting to 3-3 is a big deal to me. I mean, that would tell me a lot. That would tell me that this team's locker room isn't as messy as we think it is. Like, to keep it together. And I think they know really when Tua's coming back in that locker room. And if it's Arizona, you know, you got everything in the world to play for as a football team. You go out and win, you get your quarterback back, and you're back at 500, which puts you in, I think, at that point at the 7th seed, because the Colts are the 7th seed right now. So you would be the 7th seed in the playoffs with everything in front of you. You know, go out there, take care of business. The Dolphins are the better team without Tua than the Colts right now. Like, that is true. And I'm excited, man. I can't wait. I can't wait for Sunday.
All right, so let's get into this. So you sent me a tweet yesterday, and it was basically talking about how many NFL scouts reportedly believe the Miami Dolphins front office loves Shedeur Sanders and see him as a perfect fit. Deion Sanders has also stated he would prefer Shedeur to go to Miami. And it referenced a tweet. It was referencing a tweet that came out on October 14th from NFL Rookie Watch, where multiple NFL scouts reportedly believe the Miami Dolphins will be in the first-round quarterback market in this upcoming draft. Many NFL scouts reportedly believe the Dolphins front office loves Shedeur Sanders and see him as a perfect fit. Now, I wouldn't actually usually bring these reports up, because these aren't really the most credible outlets in the world, but I'm bringing them up because you told me that, and I'll give you the floor, you've basically heard the same thing privately verbatim.
Yeah, man. I don't see. I didn't know who that was. I saw it come across my feed, and I sent it to you, and I was like, wow. Like, And I'll be specific. I heard that the Dolphins were smitten with Shedeur Sanders, and that the person that told me that was in the press box for the Colorado Baylor game, where, you know, Colorado won, and, you know, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Like, I don't like the circus that might come with Shedeur Sanders, but the football player is brilliant. It's schematically probably the most NFL ready guy for our system in the entire draft. You know, some people say, you know, I use the word circus. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's what swagger is, and I'm just some old 42-year-old that isn't down with the times, right? Because he has what I think is that it factor. You know, and I know there's a lot of people that cheer for the Hurricanes, and Cam Ward's a great prospect, and there's a lot of good quarterback prospects in this class. You know, there's probably 8 to 10 of them that all have talent, you know, but I do think that the Dolphins, you know, when I saw that, and it was almost verbatim for what I heard when I texted you, like, it was like, wow, man. So that word is out, and it makes a lot of sense, because that is also a Stephen Ross type of move, right? And to get the headliner of the draft, per se, would make a lot of sense. And, you know, I'm consistent on this for the last 3 weeks. I think the Dolphins are going to be in that first-round quarterback market. I think if they are drafting top 10, it's a no-brainer. I think if they're the outskirts of the top 10, they might find a way to move up. I know your guy, Garrett Nussmeier, like, I think there's probably, if that guy declares, he's probably going to be a guy that's available when they're looking to pick. And, you know, he's a guy who's showing you that he's going to be on the rise, especially over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, man, I know there, a lot of people probably won't like it because it's Deion's son, but I do think there's a lot of smoke around the Miami Dolphins looking at quarterbacks. And if you had to put a gun to my head, I think Shedeur Sanders is the guy they want most if they had to make a decision today.
So for everyone wondering, the Baylor Colorado game was September 21st. So, we're talking about like 3 weeks ago. That this was being heard from the person that told Neal this.
When was Tua's concussion?
The second week of the season, so it was before September 21st.
Okay, so so that would happen right after it. Okay,
yeah, right after it.
That's chronological. I was just it makes sense.
Yeah. Now I think Sanders and Nussmeier are the best scheme fits. I think Shedeur, timing and rhythm throws, he's really strong at. When you look at what Nussmeier does, right? A lot of play action. He's already in a pro style offense with Brian Kelly. A lot of pre-snap motion over there. He's really, really effective over the middle of the field. I think the biggest thing with Nussmeier, and this is what worries me about him potentially not declaring, is with him, it's just all about experience, right? He just lacks the experience because he's only played 6 or 7 games at the collegiate level, right? Whereas you look at Shedeur, a lot more polished in the experience aspect of it, right? So what I don't like about Shedeur is the bad sacks he takes. That's what I don't like about Shedeur. Like, he either holds the ball too long or this guy drops back deep like it's Madden. And then he ends up turning, a sack that would be, 4 or 5 yards into like, I don't know if you saw some of those sacks he took, but he was taking like, I think he had a 13-yard sack, a 16-yard sack, and an 18-yard sack last weekend.
Yeah, you know what?
Like,
he plays a little too much. He definitely plays a little too much hero ball, holding on to the ball, waiting.
Yeah.
He would definitely need to be coached. It's one of the things that honestly drives me crazy about Tua is sometimes he holds the ball and tries to, live to play the other play. And I think he's far from a perfect prospect. But I will say, like, it does feel like every year there's 3 quarterbacks that are like identified at the top. And right now, it seems like Shedeur, it seems like Cam Ward, and it seems like Jalen Milroe are the guys that could take those spots. Like, that's why, like, I think
it's going to be Carson. I think it's going to be Cam, Shedeur, and Carson Beck are going to be the first 3 off the board.
Well, and full disclosure, I heard that was another guy the Dolphins liked a lot was Carson Beck. There's things to like about him. And, he didn't have the best game in the world against Alabama in the first half. But, man, like, the other team tries too. He responded really nicely and threw for 470 yards against Alabama. So
you look at what Beck does. If you look at this, right? Okay, and people are going to think I'm crazy right now. If you look at what Beck does, I see a lot of Brock Purdy in his game. A lot of stuff he has will translate to this shit. Like, I think if you're talking about the best 3 fits right now, like if you're talking about like your top 5, 6, 7 guys, I think the best 3 fits for this offense are Shedeur, Carson Beck, and Garrett Nussmeier. Like, those are what I think the 3 best schematically. What they do, those guys are probably your 3 best fits. And then if you want another fit, I just don't think fans, you have a hard time trying to sell this guy to fans, is Quinn Ewers is actually a fit with what he does and the skill set he possesses. But I don't think any of us want to go down that road of the guys. Quinn Ewers is a guy who's basically injured almost every year, it feels like.
That, and there's rumors that he's going to have to change his throwing motion. And if someone, I don't like that. I know that Rivers was able to do it. I don't necessarily like that. I'll tell you this, man. I don't know how much you watched this weekend of Drew Aller at Penn State, man, but he's a guy that I think will be head to head with Arch Manning next year to be the top.
I saw the end. I saw the obviously the game time drive and everything like that. It all depends. If Nussmeier comes back,
those 3 will be all top 5 picks. All 3.
Well, yeah, and I think it'll be Nussmeier and Arch, because I think Nussmeier. If you look at all the guys who are eligible this year, I think Nussmeier has the highest ceiling. I mean, and I've said, you've heard me say that up here, and I don't know if you saw last week. Did you see who was saying it last? Was it this week or last week? Jim Nagy was saying that from the Senior Bowl.
Was he?
And so was Dane Bulger from the Athletic. You know how great he is, right? He's
Dane's
one of the
awesome.
best,
Great guy.
he's one of the best draft minds there is, right?
Absolutely.
They both basically, and I've been saying this for quite some time that I think Nussmeier has the highest ceiling. They both went on the record on X this week and they said, yeah, Nussmeier has the highest ceiling.
Who was the guy that said that they reminded him a lot of Tony Romo? It was somebody.
There's a bunch of people.
Was it Baldinger?
No, there's a bunch. I'm seeing that comp thrown out by everyone, bro. But I'll do you one better. I see the Tony Romo in how he moves in the pocket. That's where I see the Tony Romo. But and people are gonna roast me for this. You know who I see a lot in his game?
Who's that?
Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Remember Joe Burrow's first year as an LSU starter? It wasn't all sunshine, lollipop, and rainbows. Remember, right? It was the second year as a starter where he popped off in LSU.
Yeah. Well,
if you look at it, he's kind of following the same trajectory as Burrow. And when you look at the release, you look at the throws, I think he's Burrow with a little bit of a stronger arm. He can move out of the pocket, make throws on the run. I think he's Burrow with a little bit of a better arm. Like, I think he has a bigger arm than Burrow.
And to keep it in context, too, Burrow, when he was at LSU, had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase that he was throwing the ball to.
All his guys are injured. Yeah.
It's Kyron Lacey. It's C.J. Williams.
But Hilton's injured, right? Like, all of his guys are injured right now.
But I'll say this: Jason Taylor's son Mason looks like a damn good tight end prospect.
That's his best guy.
Yeah,
like that's his best guy, right?
But yeah, Nussmeier's great, man. I love Garrett Nussmeier. I do think that if he came out, he will definitely be a top 15 pick. Like the upside is there, and like so many people when they scout, like I see on Twitter, and maybe I got to stop paying attention. They'll be like, "Oh, but he threw 2 interceptions." Like, who gives a shit?
Doesn't
like
matter.
That doesn't mean anything. Box score scouting means nothing to me. Give me a guy that's going to press the ball down the field, who's going to make mistakes because they're aggressive. Like, that, like to that Penn State game, Drew Aller threw a stupid pick early in the game. When the game was on the line, that dude dropped his marbles and was making dimes.
Bro.
4th down, left and right. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, did you watch the end of that game?
Oh,
did you watch the end of the LSU Ole Miss game? I watched the whole thing. But did you watch that drive to tie the game, that touchdown throw to tie the game, that laser over the middle of the field was just, and then, bro, first of all, didn't Ole Miss's offense look like us in OT, taking all the penalties and then getting into like a 3rd and 25 or whatever, and they couldn't get out of it, and then first throw of overtime for Nussmeier, back shoulder, touchdown, 25 yards to seal the game. Bro, like, big time moment.
To call that play, the coach has a lot of faith, right? Like, to call that play at that moment shows a lot of faith.
And Ole Miss's D's good. Their defense is good.
Well, and that's why, like, whether the Dolphins keep Tua or not, right? Like, this is why, like, this draft class, you don't have the Peyton Manning who's a slam dunk to go number 1, but you have 6-7 prospects.
Yeah,
but you've got 6 or 7 guys that are definitely first-round talent with intriguing skill sets, right? Like, I think Jalen Milroe has a lot of Josh Allen to him. We're hearing Nussmeier. You say Burrow. We see Romo. You see these names that are thrown out. Like, a lot of these young guys will do really well coming in and sitting behind a player like Tua for a year. And if they beat them out after that, then they beat them out after that, right? Like, that is a good problem to have. What we need to eliminate is the bad problem to have, which is when we have to go a quarter, half, or a full season without our starting quarterback. Like, the Dolphins probably aren't in position to spend a luxury pick on a quarterback in the first round based off of where they are in a team building perspective. But their situation is so unique that they have to do it now. They have to do it. And like those names get me excited, man. There's a lot of names that get me excited. And the way I look at it, man, is if you strike a year early, it's better than striking a year late. And I think the Dolphins have to be on that market, and they better be sending contingencies to these LSU games, to these Penn State games, in case these guys do declare, because I'll tell you this right now, somebody good is going to be there when the Dolphins pick. And if not, and I don't know who the GM is, but whoever it is, better find a way to navigate up the draft board to make sure they go get one of the guys they want, because I think that is paramount to where this franchise is right now in their development, is to have 2 capable starting quarterbacks. And from a financial standpoint, a first-round quarterback is way more cost-effective than going out and spending $10 million a year on a backup in the open market.
Yeah,
So,
or you do what the what Eagles did. You take a guy in the second, third round. Maybe that's where you roll the dice on a guy like Jackson Dart, who's got the big arm, who's super athletic and just needs more grooming as a passer. And you develop that. I mean, there's options in the first and the second round if you really want to go that route. So we got to wait to see. At the end of the day, we got to wait to see who declares and who doesn't. You know what I mean? So like our whole things will be kiboshed if a certain guys don't declare, right? And then all of a sudden everything changes. So
well, and the draft order changes, man, and it's so week to week. Like like the Dolphins were picking 4th last week, and now they're to 12th. You know what I mean? And like things change so fast that honestly, like I do it as an exercise to learn about where I'm pegging players. But mock drafts until the draft is the order is finalized to me is a waste of time. Plus, there's always trades and wrinkles that come. Like there's going to be a lot of movement. We have 3 weeks to the trade deadline. Like there's going to be teams that are contenders that are going to move first, second round picks to go get players. Next year's free agent crop is probably the worst I've ever seen. Right? Like all these players are signing an extension. I think Javon Holland legitimately is probably the consensus #1 free agent, and that's not knocking him. I'm just saying. And then after him, the cupboard's pretty bare. There's not a lot of big names out there. They're all signing extensions. Like I think teams are going to be active at the deadline, knowing like, hey, we can get this guy in the last year of his deal and then pay him because there's not a lot of people that we're going to be chasing in free agency. So I do think you're going to see a lot of movement, and that's what we see in all professional sports now. Like these trades with Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper just happened early. There's going to be a fast and furious, amount of trades in the NFL over the next couple of weeks. It's just going to happen.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. With Tua's return on, it's pending and it seems like it's going to be soon and it's on the horizon. Plus, we just talked about the quarterback situation. For you, is Tua's return going enough to start fixing this season and righting the ship?
The answer is yes, and I'm not a full believer of this football team right now. I'm just going to be honest. I think the deficiencies they have in the interior of the offensive line. I think losing a Jalen Phillips when Bradley Chubb. Like I think there's a lot they're dealing with. But what I've learned is the AFC is not as good as we all thought it was. Actually, the NFC might be better than the AFC and I'd have laughed at someone who said that to me a few months back. But you look at our division, sure, the Bills look like they're going to run away with it. It looked like we were going to run away with it last year, and they called us. Can we do that to them? I don't think the Bills are this unbeatable team. I think we're better than the Jets and the Patriots, so it is what it is. I think we're better than every team in the West that's not named the Kansas City Chiefs. The Baltimore Ravens are a problem. I picked them to win the Super Bowl before the year, and I still think they're the best team in football. The Browns look like a disaster. The Bengals, I still think, have great offensive talent, but their defense sucks, and Zach Taylor just isn't a good NFL coach at this point. Steelers are a tough team, and I think mostly because of that defense. I think Mike Tomlin's making one of the worst moves that he's made in his time benching Justin Fields for Russell Wilson. The timing just doesn't make sense. And then when you look at the South, I think the Houston Texans are a really good team. I'd probably put them above the Dolphins in the pecking order right now. But the Colts, the Jags, and even the Titans, even though they beat us, if we have Tua Tagovailoa, I think we're a better team than every team in that division. Yeah. So if I look at it realistically, and I won't even give the Dolphins the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, I think they're one of the best 6 teams in the AFC right now, and 7 teams get in the playoffs. So if they can find a way to win against Indianapolis and beat Arizona, and they get back to 4-3, no matter what happens in that Bills game, they have a lot of winnable football games. So from the drop-off we've seen at the quarterback position and what I've learned over the last 3 weeks, and, there's people that think that I give Tua a pass, and, I look at it with the glass half full versus half empty. I will say this. I have learned that Tua Tagovailoa is very underappreciated by the entirety of NFL fans, and he might not be the best player on our team, but he's the most important. Like, I've watched him go and beat the Jets 30-0 with no Tyreek Hill, 3 starters down on the offensive line. I've watched Tyreek Hill become a 5-catch, 50-yard receiver without Tua, right?
Yeah.
So and Tyreek Hill, at its core is a better football player overall than Tua, and you're not going to get an argument from me. But for the Miami Dolphins right now, there's no player more important than Tua. The drop-off from Tua to any other player at that position is more drastic than any other position on our team. Like, even Tyreek to Odell, like, you know what I mean? Like, it is Tua to Tyler Huntley is drastic. And I've gained a new appreciation for him. Not to say he's perfect, not to say I don't think he needs to play bigger in the bigger stage, not to say that I want to see him carry this team a little bit more on his back in some of these tough games. But man, like, there's there's a contingency of fans that still are on this witch hunt to make Tua out to be this fraud and a disaster. And
Agendas,
like,
bro.
It's crazy to me because it's like you've watched on Monday Night Football against Tennessee some of the most putrid quarterback play you've ever seen, and somehow you spin that into Tua can't win against
Well,
Kansas
they're the
City.
same ones that told us Skylar Thompson was QB1, bro, and the best quarterback in the room, right? Like, they're the same ones. They're trying to take a victory lap. Oh, I told you he wouldn't. But when they said he would never be a franchise quarterback, they said he would never lead the league in passing or play at a Pro Bowl level. When he proved all that wrong, and all the people trying to take the injury victory lap, listen, coming out of Alabama, no one was worried about the concussion he suffered on that play against South Carolina. Everyone was worried about the hip and the posterior wall fracture. That's what everyone was worried about.
And you're right on the agendas because, man, I'll say this. Trevor Lawrence stinks. He's not even – I don't even know if he's better than average. I watched that guy on Sunday, and I know he had some drops, but I don't –
Sorry, it was against Mississippi State, not South Carolina. I apologize.
Yeah,
anyway, sorry, Cole.
No, I just never see Trevor Lawrence do anything, right? And I don't see the media attacking him. I don't see their fan base attacking him. Like, his highs have never been as high as Tua's highs, ever. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's just, to me, it's like, look, at worst, Tua's a top 12 quarterback in this league. At best, he has shown flashes to be in that 6 to 8 range. Like, I don't know, man. I don't understand the hatred towards the guy. Like, there are some people in the fan base that just every time they're in a space or every time they have a mic, they always have to pull the story back to Tua's shortcomings. Tua hasn't played football in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You got to go with something else. The guy's not even playing. You can't hurt him. You can't go against him. But yeah, man, I think it's a humongous lift. I think it is as big of a lift as the Miami Dolphins can get, and it's coming at the right time. Handle your business this week, man, and prove those who doubt you wrong. Play with a chip on your shoulder. Stop being the nice, happy team that's fast. Learn how to put a knife in someone's back, man.
Well, that's what I think we all liked about this past week, right? Was we showed a little bit of edge. We showed a little bit of a pound the rock down your throat. We were setting the tone. We were showing a physical side to this team, right? So, but one thing I wanted to talk about too was, did you hear what Butch Barry said about the offensive line today?
I did not.
Okay, I'm going to play the clip. So this is what Butch Barry said in regards to the offensive line today.
In a really good direction every week. And again, there's a lot of things that get pieced together, like we just talked about with everyone, and how we want the run game to look, how we want the protection plan to look, where we want the quarterback to be, what we're looking at, everything to be, and how we want to set it all up from a launch point, all that. So, they are trending in a really good direction. Absolutely. Are there plays that all of us wish were better or we want back to be in a better situation? Yeah, that's every team, that's every player that I've ever been a part of. But they are doing things in a fashion. They have versatility. They have multiplicity. They are doing things in a fashion. They work together. I mean, there are so many things that have to meet the standard that you're referencing. That they do achieve, and that's why we like having them in the room.
So they continue to double down on Eichenberg and Robert Jones and where this offensive line is at, Neal. Robert Jones is a mitigated disaster all preseason and all season up until the Patriots game. I thought Eichenberg was downright awful at times in the Patriots game, but because he had that really strong drive on the touchdown run that we had in the second half, I kind of gave him a little leeway. But he's been a roller coaster this season with up and down plays. Sometimes, some drives he looks competent, some drives he looks like a disaster. And everyone wants to Neal, you're talking about people being unfair to Tua. I think a lot of people are being unfair to Aaron Brewer. A lot of people are trying to pile on Aaron Brewer and make it out to be that he hasn't been that great this season, when I think he's been pretty good considering the jabronis he's had on his right and left side all season. I mean, Neal, we've seen Austin Jackson. He had, the last 2 years next to Robert Hunt, he's looked good to really good at times. Now he's regressed. He's looked average to above average and competent at times a little bit. The interior play has affected Austin Jackson. I think it's not helping out Aaron Brewer's situation. Terron Armstead, when he's healthy, is just a top 3 tackle, no matter who you put next to him in the NFL. What are your thoughts on Frank Smith doubling down on this interior?
They're loyal, man, to these guys, and I think that deep down they know that there's a problem, and they're just trying to build confidence. Like, we know Isaiah Wynn doesn't look like he's coming back anytime soon. So, the way I look at it, man, is that, I do think Austin Jackson is actually starting to find his feet a little bit better. He looks like he's been playing a little bit better the last couple weeks. So I think him, Brewer, and if Terron Armstead wants to come back for another season, and you have Patrick Paul developing behind him, you have the core of your offensive line, and you really need to go out there and elevate the guard play and go. I think you need to sign a guy and draft a guy, and you go get a guy like Trey Smith in free agency, and you can go draft a guard like Tate Ratledge from Georgia.
Ooh, I love it.
In round 2 at the end.
Do you think Booker goes in the first round?
I don't, man. Like, I actually had heard
I would like
that,
Booker too.
Yeah, so on the offensive line front, we know the top 2 guys, Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks. And, to be fair, like, Campbell gave up 3 sacks last week. I think they're both first-round players, but not top 20 players in that draft. There's a lot of people like that kid from Minnesota, Ariante Ursary. He's a guy, but the guy who I love for the Dolphins, if they can get him in the draft, is actually Emory Jones Jr. from LSU.
Love him.
I want him at left guard. And what he reminds me of is, and not the player now, but La'el Collins, when he came out of LSU, was a stud who I thought was going to be an all-pro guard and an adequate tackle. I think if you could get a guy like Emory Jones Jr. and you go buy Trey Smith, you have just drastically overhauled your offensive line, and you got people movers that can pass block and run block. And then, then I'm saying, hey, Terron, stay for one more year. That gives Patrick Paul one full more year to develop and be the full swing guy. And I mean, man, that is how you have to do it here. Like, you have to fix this line. And there's good interior guys in this year's draft. There are so
Look at
many
Alabama, Brailsford, Booker, Georgia, Ernest Green, Clay Webb from Clay Webb from Jacksonville State. I mean, you mentioned Tate Rutledge already. Like, there's some good guys, like, right?
Oh, yeah. And the kid from Arizona, Jonah Sabanea, who is a tackle guard, and dude, he's another guy.
He's a big boy. He's 6'5", 330. He's a big boy.
You could kick him inside the guard. Yeah, there's Clay Webb. I mean, there's a lot of guys, man. It's a
Donovan
really
Jackson. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And it's you got to get, like, we keep saying this about this team, but the good news I think is that Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg are both unrestricted free agents. So is Isaiah Wynn. Like, I don't even know if they have a guard on their roster under contract next
and
year.
You can move off of it and look like, hey, we tried. You don't have to double down.
Right, because if you go out and sign Liam Eichenberg to any extension in this offseason, I think you might have pitchforks at the stadium, man, because it's laughable at this point. But, like, I get the philosophy that Mike McDaniel, but Mike McDaniel's learning some lessons, and, like, this is the year the Dolphins have to say, look, the offensive line and the defensive, like, they have a lot of draft capital. Like, I want them to fully go in on building the trenches to complement the rest of their team. And on the draft note, the Christian Wilkins 3rd-round comp pick is locked. He can miss the rest of the season, and the Dolphins
Mhm.
still get that third pick. So that's a good nugget. Now,
Robert Hunt has to play 75%, right?
Right. He has to play 75% of the snaps to do it. Now, he's been healthy. He hasn't missed any snaps yet this year. So that's good to hear. But he has to play 75% of the snaps. If not, that pick falls to a fourth rounder. But, man, coming out of this draft with 2 third-rounders would
What's
be
Deshaun Elliott, a 7th rounder we'd get?
a 7th. So right now what we have is a 1,
He's
a
playing
2.
real good, too.
Yeah, a 1, a 2, 2 3s. We have our 4. Then we have our 5th and Denver's 5th. We don't have a 6th, but we have our 7th, Chicago's 7th, and a 7th compensatory pick. So we have a lot of draft capital. I really like having a 1, 2, and 2 3s. And
if they took a legitimate starting guard and added a guard through free agency, like you said, if they took they take a guard in free agency, like you said, then if they added a legitimate starting guard and that contingency plan at quarterback in the first 3 rounds, I would be very happy. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, of course. And you can always find good defensive interior linemen in the later third, fourth round.
And you can use that other pick in the first 3 rounds, right? You got 2 picks in the third round. You got 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. I mean, if you get an interior defensive lineman, an interior offensive lineman, and that contingency at quarterback, you could already say those first 4 picks, and we don't even know what the 4th pick is, are a home run.
Yeah, I did a mock freestyle draft in the third round the first compensatory pick. I had us taking Nazir Stackhouse, so I had us taking Shedeur in round 1, and it wasn't what I would do; it's what I thought the Dolphins would do. So I had them taking Shedeur in round 1. I had them taking Emory Jones in round 2, the guy who I mentioned who's the tackle guard from LSU, and then I had them doubling down at line. So I had them taking Nazir Stackhouse who's a nose tackle, I think actually, never mind. With the second pick, I actually swapped it, and I had them getting Jamon Dumas Johnson, who's the linebacker from Kentucky, who was a Georgia transfer. Because my thought process there was that they're going to keep Jordan Brooks. I think David Long is going to be a free agent that leaves, and I could see them wanting to get somebody else in at linebacker.
Yeah, man, if they just would have taken one of those guys that I loved, Christian Haynes or Mason McCormick, man, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. We'd be talking about finishing up the offensive line with either another draft pick or a free agent. How do you feel going into this Colts game? Final thoughts going into this Colts game with all these injuries piling up, and how do you see it turning out for the Miami Dolphins this weekend?
Yeah, I think the offense will get better in the second half like we saw this week, but I do still think Mike McDaniel will probably come out and try to push it a little bit. But the Colts are, man, down bad. No Buckner, no Jonathan Taylor. Michael Pittman's playing hurt. I saw Josh Downs was on the injury report. I don't know if he's playing. Braden Smith, who's one of their better offensive linemen, he's been down. This is a game that the Dolphins are just a better team. And them pulling Flacco at the point they're pulling him for Anthony Richardson, I know why they have to do it. For me as a Dolphins fan, I exhale a little bit because I think Joe Flacco could actually probably have his way a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
With us.
Yeah.
So I actually think that, we'll be able to kind of probably lock in on Anthony Richardson a little bit. I think the Dolphins can win this one pretty ugly, maybe by the score of like 20 to 16. And get to 3-3, and yeah, I think Miami's the better team, and I think they'll pull it out. I think we're due for a positive surprise, and I think this could be the week where they actually hit one of those bombs like the Tyreek. I think Huntley is going to hit a big play, whether it's the Waddle or Tyreek, for a big touchdown in the air, and I'm excited, man. I missed them. The bye week sucks. Bye week sucks worse than losing, in my opinion, but yeah, I think on Monday morning we're going to be 3-3. Second
but
place
hey,
in the AFC.
We didn't lose. At least we didn't lose this week. That's the one thing you can say, right?
Well, hey, the next is it Sunday night? It's the Jets Steelers, man. I look, the Steelers win that game, and the Jets are 2-5. I mean, man, you might be talking. You made that trade for Devontae Adams for no reason because you're practically got to go 8-1 for the rest of the year to make even the wild card probably at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think the Dolphins have shown a little resolve, and the Patriots are not a good team, but that you got to get the wins. Go get a W. Then you're winning 2 in a row, and the Dolphins are coming off the bye. And the one question I was going to ask you, I saw Odd was going to play. It sounds like Javon Holland's trending towards playing.
He is. He's going to be playing with a wrap on his hand. And just further to your point, Pittman did practice today, full participant, but Ryan Kelly is limited. Josh Downs is limited. Alec Pierce did not practice, and Jonathan Taylor did not practice. So, yeah, they're banged up. But
Wow.
guys, I will be back tomorrow. We will preview the Dolphins and the Colts. Then I'll be live on Sunday for the live reaction as well as a post-game show. Let's go get the W this weekend. Over 320 of you in the room. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. And we will see you on the next one. Until then, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. Have a fantastic rest of your day, everyone.